official, right? You need to ensure the minimum standards of the code are met. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at this as we move on. The inspector's job would be easier if construction and the codes that regulate it was an exact science. But lo and behold, it's not an exact science. Believe it or not, it really isn't. Okay. It's not the case, and it should not be understood to be that way, right? Therefore, defining the challenge and responsibility of the inspector is solely of that particular inspector. But understand, it's not an exact science, right? Every day, inspectors use their experience and knowledge in making reasonable decisions and reaching conclusions as to the intent of the code. Now, look at this. I don't carry my micrometers on the inspection with me. This is not like precision to a thousandth of an inch or something like that. Things of that nature. Let me give you an example. If we go to precision here, right? How precise is your job and how precise do I have to be? Well, take a look at this here. The most important question you need to ask yourself is, where is the hazard, right? Where is the hazard, right? Defining the basic principle of the code. Look at your approved drawings. That's the litmus test in deciding and making decisions, right? Especially about precision. I wanted to show this because I can't tell you how many times I used to have one of these or several of these that I've used for a lot of years. Here's a tape measure. It's kind of got that broken tang off of it. It's all rusted. I can't hardly read something like this. You follow what I'm saying? And if I look at something like that, I say to myself, do I have the proper tools to do my job? Well, in a case like this, I don't, right? There's going to be times where exact measurements to a tolerance of a 16th, eighth, or a quarter doesn't really make sense, okay? But always remember, use the proper tools that are in good condition so you can take proper readings, right? Let me kind of give you an example here, okay? When is the measurement close enough? Now, do tolerances apply to safety items such as the height of rails, handrails, and guards? Let me give you an example here, kind of set you up for this here, okay? And if I showed you a set of stairs here, here's my set of stairs. And on the open side of the stairs here, I have what's called a guard. That's this top piece of pipe here, this guard here. And let's say that you went out and you measured this guard, measured from the tread of the stair all the way up to the top of the guard, right? I'm going to measure from the nosing here for the handrail, nosing to the guard, things of that nature. And you go out there and you measure. And the guard on a commercial is in the code to be 42 inches, right? But you go out in the field and you measure this thing and it's 36 inches to the top of the guard. Is there a problem here? Is there a problem here? I would say yes, there is, right? Absolutely there is, right? So you need to make sure this is not precision. This is way out of whack here, isn't it? You need to make sure it's correct. Here's another one. Electrical. My electrical folks, this is for you. A homeowner does not agree with your interpretation regarding the spacing of receptacles in this new house. How would you handle this conversation? Well, if you're not electrical, let me explain what's happening here. You get the approved construction documents and it shows adequate spacing, except when you go out in the field, you say to yourself, wait a minute, something's wrong here. Something doesn't look like what was submitted for review and approval. When you go out on the job site, right? Here's an opening here. You take continuous wall space, and I need a receptacle within 6 foot of the opening. Boom, there's a receptacle. Got it. But yet when I go from my receptacle here in continuous wall space, I go 14 feet, and then I have a receptacle. Well, what the code indicates here is that you have a receptacle within 6 feet of where I'm going to maybe plug in maybe like a lamp or something like that. I have to have not greater than 6 foot spacing. However, If I have continuous wall space, I can space my receptacles 12 feet apart simply by installing maybe a lamp or a table here with a lamp cord with a 6-foot cord. I can plug into that receptacle or this receptacle. That's the function of this particular code section. But the owner says, I want to leave it at 14 feet. And they just don't simply understand why we have this rule in our standard that is referenced in the National Electrical Code. Here's the section right here. It's 210.52A1. You need to explain it to these folks that we don't want to have an extension cord running, right? Kind of a thing. So if I put a table here, in essence, my lamp can have a 6-foot cord. I could plug in without an extension cord to either receptacle when I have not exceeding a 12-foot spacing. So maybe the solution to this one after it's been roughed is, you know what? Maybe it's better if you met that 12-foot, or maybe add another receptacle here in the middle. You can make some recommendations and the rest is up to them. You got to be willing to explain the situations to these folks out in the field. And that comes with experience, right? Be consistent. Be consistent. If you're going to administer codes, you need to understand the codes. You need to get with your people in your building department so you can all be consistent, right? If you got some conflicts, maybe you got 2 inspectors that don't agree on a code section. Building officials, you need to rein the folks in and say, hey, we need to have a meeting. We need to make sure we get this right and be consistent, all right, on the application of the codes. Because I got to tell you, the most heard complaints are lack of consistency. And that's what it's all about. So here's your kind of summary, all in a nutshell here. Remember, flexibility, explore maybe some alternatives, the intent of the code, keep an open mind, right? How about this one? Boundaries. What is required? How about this one? Where does the code end? Some people say the code never ends. It does. It does. You can come up with some good, clear, concise intent of many, many codes, right? The level of precision varies. Remember, it's not an exact science, and we need to be consistent. Let me throw something up at you, and I want you to answer this question. This is a simple question. Help me answer this in the chat. Here's your question. In the residential code, I'll just kind of use that, maybe in the model residential code, there's a code section, I don't know, somewhere in chapter 3 that says, you know what? Your new dwelling must have an address on it, and it must post the address number, okay? So you go out on the job site and you run into this. Is 2 inches close enough for a house address number when the code says it must be greater than or equal to 4 inches? Is this okay? Is 2 inches close enough for a house address number when the code says it's got to be greater or equal to 4 inches? Everybody should say no. Well, why is that? Well, how can you explain that to people? What if they say, well, I'm just a homeowner. Why is that? What's your answer? What would you provide to them for an example? Why is that in the code? Excellent answer, Tim. You got it. That is the minimum. That is the minimum acceptable dimension for the addresses, and it's all based on exactly right. Visibility, right? Emergency, first responders. I mean, that's what the whole idea is here. Yeah, exactly right. Here's another one. I'll throw another one in here. How do you measure fire separation distance from a lot line? Now, if you're not familiar with this, if you're new to our industry or maybe haven't heard of this, let me kind of guide you through this, okay? How do you measure fire separation distance from a lot line? The words fire separation distance you will find in the residential code, building code, and the commercial building code. Let me show you how this works. And remember, we're talking about measuring fire separation distance. Now, if I look at an approved set of construction documents, I may see a site plan here. And as an inspector, if I go out maybe on a footing or a foundation, or maybe even an exterior wall framing kind of a job, I'm going to want to understand, number one, probably before the building gets built on the footer inspection, how far away from the lot line do I need to be, right? And it should tell me on the site plan, but would you agree with me? Here's the exterior wall, and you measure perpendicular from the exterior wall to a lot line, alley, center line of a street, or an imaginary line, okay? In this case, we measure perpendicular to the exterior wall. We measure between the building and closest interior lot line, maybe a center line of a street, alley, or public way, things of that nature. Or we measure to an imaginary line that is placed by the designer anywhere between the buildings as a demarcation, so I can measure perpendicular from the building's exterior wall to the lot line. You need to understand this because it's critical, because the buildings are designed with a certain fire separation distance. So as an inspector, you got to know what that distance is for you to do your inspections and make sure that that building has been laid out properly and can be built with that distance as measured in the field. Keep that in mind. So again, it's not precise. In other words, we're not going to get to the 16th of an inch, things of that nature, but understand it's a very, very important dimension. Okay. Consistency and fairness in the application of the codes. Did you see that? We've been talking about consistency, but you got to be fair, right? In other words, don't administer the code one way for one person or one contractor and do it totally different for another one, because that's not how it works. You need to be consistent. You need your team to be consistent. You need to strive for this. Okay. That's how you build credibility, not only within you, but within your department, ladies and gentlemen. Gain the respect and trust of the public, right? Do it right. Come up with policies and procedures. Take a look at this. A policy is a statement used to describe the organization's intent to do something, right? Maybe some resources, responsibilities, review process, things of that nature. The procedure is a step-by-step instruction on how policies are implemented. It'll give a scope, a definition, responsibilities, and carry out step by step the processes. As a new person, I remember coming into this a long time ago, and it's way different today. I got to tell you, when I came into the building departments, I got to tell you, the processes back then, we didn't have, the International Code Council back then. They weren't even a corporation back then. We were, adopting codes off of the old Boca codes, right? And each department, had their separate codes that they could adopt residentially, right? Things of that nature. So, but now it's different. Now, make sure that you have these policies and step-by-step procedures. The step-by-step procedures that you can actually implement here are all included in Chapter 1 of the Residential Code and the Commercial Code. So it really makes it easier for you to maybe indicate or even copy a lot of those procedures in Chapter 1 right into your policy and procedure documentation within your building department. It's gotten very easy for us to communicate with everybody using these documents. All right, moving on. Finding solutions. You got to have a problem-solving approach, because I tell you, you are inundated with a lot of problems, probably on a daily basis, right? Maybe people are asking you for help, right? Help the people navigate the hurdles. You know what the hurdles are for a lot of people? They don't understand the codes like you do. They don't understand the plumbing codes. If you're a plumbing inspector, well, help them understand it. Maybe it's a new contractor coming out on the job site. They just got their license. They've been doing this for a while. Help them out a little bit, right? Hey, plumbing inspectors, right? Maybe they got a T on its back, right? And I got a stack coming right down through the middle of the T. You know what's going to happen. That's a bad connection. It's not permitted by code. Help them understand the function, right? Believe me, it's good reputation. It's good for everybody to get along out there. In other words, not only the department, but each one of you out there, inspectors, plan reviewers, people will look at you as a resource. People will call you and say, hey, I really appreciate you helping me out with that project last year. I got a project here in another jurisdiction, and I just wanted to kind of run something by you. And, yeah, not a problem. And oh, by the way, as you're talking to that designer, oh, I know that building official and the plans examiners, they're all great people. And, that they'll probably look at it like we will, things of that nature. So people will come back to you and say, hey, thanks for helping me out. Can you help me out with maybe another problem that I got, or a potential, or maybe provide a solution, right? So there's no use in talking about the problem unless you talk about the solution. That's the key. Let's talk about time management. Don't you wish you could get more time in the day? Well, guess what? It's fitting that we're doing this seminar at this point here, because we have to put our clocks ahead now, right? On what, like Saturday or Sunday, something like that. So we're going to lose an hour. Oh, crazy, isn't it? But how do we get more time? Well, think about it. Be organized, right? Schedule yourself accordingly. It's important to be aware of how your time is being spent, because I'll tell you what, you dwell on things, and if your mind is not on point, right, during the day, right, you can wander off, right? Or maybe you're spending way too much time on trying to type up a letter when you can just make a phone call, right? Initially, use your time management. Don't let time slip away from you, okay? Think about it. What barriers are there to getting your work done? Think about that. Are you consistently late for scheduled appointments? Or in completing assignments? Ask yourself, why? Why? Can you provide examples of how to better manage your time, or maybe a method to free up more time? It's all about the schedule, isn't it? I don't know. Maybe I'll give you an example, right? I look at it this way. Every day is a new day, believe me. And if I got baggage from the previous day, which I got a lot of baggage that I deal with on a lot of projects, I need to make sure that I work on that till I complete it. But in other words, if you can't work on a project the whole day, right? If you can't research the code book the whole day for a couple of problems, you know what? You got to do a little bit at a time. So maybe schedule yourself, maybe for when you get into the office in the morning. Hey, based on that inspection that I did the day before, I told that general contractor that I was going to look up a code section for her. And I better take care of that this morning while I got about a good hour in the office. So I'm going to do that, make a call, get that done. Boom, I check that off my list. I don't have to go back to it anymore, right? Things of that nature. Let me see what my inspection schedule is going to be like today. Oh, here's my layout. I'm good all morning. I can do some more research, or maybe write up a certificate of plan approval, and then go out in the field and do inspections on a Friday afternoon. You follow? Things like that. You need to provide a good schedule and keep a well-organized time management. Take a look at this here. This is located on page 47 in the book called Inspector Skills. These are some methods and tips for you to improve your efficiency. I mean, take a look at this here. We have different things here, barriers to efficiency. I don't know here, like writing emails, right? Use a descriptive subject line, be concise and stay on the subject. Don't get wandery and write volumes of text, right? Stay on the subject and recognize when a phone call is more efficient. That way you don't have to waste the time typing everything out and, copying and pasting code sections in, things of that nature. Procrastination. I want to talk a little bit about this. You see this right here? Procrastination. How many of you are procrastinators out there? How many of you are procrastinators out there? Well, I'll tell you what, sometimes I do that. I'll raise my hand because if we do a lot of things, sometimes maybe something will slip through the cracks and you say, well, I can get to that maybe tomorrow or next week. But all of a sudden, you know what happens, right? Something else gets in the way. And all of a sudden, now you're crunched for time. You got to have this report at a meeting, right? Maybe the next morning, and man, you're up all night trying to create the report, and then by the next morning you're really tired. So you learn from this stuff, right? Try not to be a procrastinator, right? Right? Assess the reason for putting the task off, right? Right? Addresses the fear or difficulty. Establish a to-do list and follow it. In other words, give yourself enough time for whatever you need to do as far as scheduling. Do the most difficult tasks first thing. I do that. I live by that. I'll take the most difficult stuff first, right, Andy? Yeah, I meant to respond about procrastination sooner, but I just didn't get to it. Yeah, how about that? Yeah, I like that. Um, Handling paperwork. This is key, right? Handling paperwork. Don't let it pile up. Don't let it pile up. I got to tell you. Develop an effective filing system. In other words, prioritize your active folders or inbox, right? After an initial review of paperwork, touch it once and deal with it as necessary so you're not coming back to it repeatedly. Now, sometimes you can't get rid of that paperwork immediately, but work on it till you can get it done. Put it in maybe folders, to-do folders, critical folders that you can reference by getting it out maybe by the end of the week or the end of the second week. It's all time management. Let me show you another thing here, a little tip for you. I don't know about you, but I had a problem with this one time. I had a Microsoft system when I was the building official. We had Microsoft Office, and this thing used to pop up all the time. Every time I got an email, and this little thing right here. You see that little screen there that pops up on your desktop? And there was like a little bell or a little audio thing. It went ding, 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 and I used to get a ton of emails all day long, and I couldn't figure out for the life of me for like 2 days how to get into the setting to shut that thing off. I'd be in the back, I don't know, working on a letter or something like that. And all of a sudden I'd turn around and ding, ding, ding. That was so distracting to me. It would take my focus off what I was doing and I would immediately go to my emails. You know, as a building official, you get inundated with emails all day long, right? Plans examiner, same thing. How do you kind of manage your time? Well, here's how I did, and I'll give you a suggestion. Maybe you do the same thing. When I get in the office in the morning, I check my emails. That's the first thing that I do because maybe some emails come in during the evening hours, right? And if they're critical, I mark them, I flag them, I deal with them, or I put it on my schedule to deal with them immediately that morning, right? I turn off these audible things, these visual things in my email. Then I'll go through the course of the morning after I come up with my schedule. I'll maybe implement some calendar appointments in my calendar, things of that nature. Deal with the phone calls, right? You may have to deal with the public counter in the morning, right? Following up for yesterday's inspections, things of that nature. It's all about scheduling your time effectively. That's what it's all about. And don't get distracted by having things that you can control that will distract you. Okay. All right. Moving on. Let's talk about professionalism. And I want to mention this. Professionalism is not easily defined. Okay. The appearance is only one small part of professionalism. Okay. Let me kind of share this with you a little bit here. We'll have a little discussion here. Professionalism, it varies. It's based on maybe your role and your duty and maybe local expectations. Let me share this with you. And I got to tell you, I'm really impressed with the fire officials out there because you know what? When the fire officials, come to the building department once in a while, some of these guys come in with their dressed whites, right? and their gold badges and things of that nature. These guys and gals, they look professional, and they are professional out there. Us in the construction industry, I mean, professional for us, I mean, we might wear a nice shirt and a nice pair of pants and some work boots and a hard hat and stuff like that, but we're professional too. Don't get us wrong. But attire does not mean the sole meaning behind the attributes of everything you need to be professional, right? You could look professional. That's the start right there. Having the attire that goes along with your role and your duty as a professional. But let's kind of expand this a little bit. Professionalism, not offensive to the public, right? You always want to not be offensive to the public, right? And professionalism is not defined by formal attire or degrees, period, right? It's more about how we conduct ourselves in our jobs and the professional image that we project. Think about it. You're a professional, or you wouldn't be sitting in this class here today, right? Carry yourself like a professional, all right? Next, here's some attributes right here. We're going to continue this. Number one, do you have specialized expertise? Type it in the chat. I'm just going to ask you some questions here, and I hope everybody answers yes to this. Do you personally have specialized expertise today? Do you? I'm reading the chat. I'm seeing a lot of yeses. I'm going to kind of put myself in here too. Say, yes, we do, right? Well, give me an example. What type of special expertise do you have? Is it a certification? Is it experience? That could be an attribute of your professionalism, correct? I agree. I agree. The next one, integrity. You must have integrity, right? And integrity, as we know it, right, is a concept of actions, values, methods, principles, expectations in ethics. Integrity is honesty and truthfulness, right? Things of that nature. We already went over that. Honesty. These are the attributes of a professional person. Honesty. What else? Respectfulness. Be respectful. You like to be respected. Well, respect everybody else. You know what? Can't we all just get along, right? Let's respect everybody, right? That's our job as code professionals. Effective communication is key. Believe me, I like to say, try to figure out your audience out there. Try to figure it out. If you're talking to some people with very, very low technical expertise, you may have to kind of water down your approach to communication with those folks. Like, let's say you're dealing with a homeowner whose contractor isn't there for the rough structure, electrical, mechanical, and plumbing inspections. And all of a sudden you ran into some conflicts that were built in, and they weren't in the approved construction documents. How do you explain something technically related to a system to a homeowner that doesn't have the technical expertise to understand that properly? You go real slow and you break it down into little pieces, and you share the approved construction documents with the owner and get into a conversation and help them understand maybe the area of non-compliance. You follow? That's how you do it. Okay. The next one to having professional attributes is the following: reliability. Reliability. Can you be reliable, right? Able to produce, right? Time after time, like a known quantity, right? How much a person can be depended on, right? Person is reliable. Now, confidence. I told you we're going to spend some time on confidence, and we will. Confidence, being fair, being responsible, and being punctual. And last but not least, the second to the last one is called team-oriented attitude. We got to work together out there, right? If you're the supervisor or the boss, right? And you may be confident, but sometimes, you can get a little bit of arrogancy, right? Don't be arrogant, right? You need to work with the people, right? You need to work with the people that are under you, that you supervise. You need to support those folks, right? When they come to you for information, you've got to be able to give that information in a friendly, mentoring type of an attitude, in a confident way, right? Team-oriented avenue. It goes for everybody, everybody. And then finally, appropriate appearance. Now, remember this confidence thing that I've been kind of drilling us on this all day, right? Let's take a look at it. Here it is. Will you be confident or arrogant in your professional career? I don't know about you, but I choose confident. Take a look at the stark difference here. A confident individual, professional, attracts people. You are aware of strengths and weaknesses. Can you be humble out there if you make a mistake, right? Oh man, I made a mistake. I'm sorry, kind of fess up, right? Make it right, right? A confident professional determines to use strengths to the best of their ability, right? Think about it. I mean, if you come from I don't know, let me pick a discipline. If you came from the structural discipline, I don't know, maybe you're a structural engineer or something, and you say, hey, I want to be a plans examiner. Well, congratulations. And you aspire to maybe get into mechanical and electrical plans exam. Know your strengths and use them to the best of your ability, right? And don't feel ashamed to kind of reach out to some of the electrical people that may be in the department, right? Maybe there's an electrical person that's been maybe a contractor and worked in the field for 20 years, and if you aspire to be something, kind of join up and you can build your confidence along with other people at the same time, right? Those are the benefits. The confident people lifts and encourages others. That's what it's all about. We got to work together as a team, and we all celebrate success. When I celebrate success, just like you, when I pass state and national exams, maybe for licensure, certifications, things of that nature, doesn't it make you feel good? Man, I'll tell you what, and we can all rally together. Now, conversely, here's the arrogant people, and I know we all know people like this, but you know what? I don't aspire to be this at all, and you should not either. Arrogant people think that they know everything, and they tell people that they know everything, and they repel people. Nobody wants to be around an arrogant person, so get rid of that. No good. Arrogance does not equal security. The arrogant inspector may go out there and list 20 or 30 or 40 different items because they don't like that contractor, right? That's the wrong approach. That's not only the wrong approach here in Ohio, it's the wrong approach anywhere in a local building department, right? Arrogance does not equal security. You may think you're the best inspector out there and you know it all. Come on, get over it, man. There's always somebody somewhere that's going to be better. Let's just get along. Share the information. That's what it's all about. The arrogant person has to prove his or her worth. They brag, they belittle other, they deflate other. And they're the ones that kind of maybe start a lot of the drama that we're so interested in not even getting along, right? So can't we just all get along? Remember this. I'm going to go back. Remember the most heard comments, right? I've been doing it this way for years. How do you respond to that? You smile nicely. You'll be an educator and you'll be a proponent for your department. Stick up for your department. Stick up for the people in your department. For that much, stick up for the state of Ohio, right? Board of Building Standards does a great job at helping us out accordingly. Here's another one. Why don't they have to do that in our jurisdiction and other people make us do it another way? Or you're not welcome on my land. Remember, we saw these, right? You're just making me spend more money. And I moved here because I didn't want the rules. Share with them why you do what you do. And maybe they'll listen, maybe they won't, but get it out there. It's all positive stuff. And smile. It's okay to smile and convey good information. Here's your skills for getting along, right? Be respectful, keep an open mind, be helpful, fair. This one right here. If you don't have empathy, try to understand what maybe the person or the entity is going to feel like maybe when they get I don't know, an adjudication order for inadequate construction documents. Or maybe if you're an inspector in the field, maybe you have to kind of write on that log that the structure was not in compliance with the approved construction documents. Understand that you may get a call, you may get an email, and you may have to explain, right? So have some empathy, because you understand that somebody might call you back and ask you some questions. Well, how do I fix the deficiencies? How do I get compliance? Can you help me out? You got to be willing to help them out. Have some empathy. Know how they feel. Okay? Know how they feel. In other words, if I didn't like something, if I was a customer and I came to your building department and I dropped a set of construction documents off and it came back as maybe inadequate construction documents with an adjudication order attached to it, whether it be residential or commercial, do I have the right to appeal your decision? Yes or no? Type it in the chat. Do I have the right to appeal your decision if you issued me like an adjudication order for inadequate construction documents? Do I have the right to appeal? Everybody should answer yes,
Lots
I
of yes.
do. Right? There you go, Meg. But the burden of proof is on me, isn't it? So if I have the right to appeal, I have to look at all of your items that were inadequate and I have to respond accordingly. You follow? So in other words, do your job, do your job adequately, be professional, be courteous. And if you don't know certain answers, things of that nature, reach out to the people that will help you out. In other words, if you're kind of like indecisive, gee, should I issue this order? Should I issue this adjudication order? Maybe you want to get a second opinion, if you're uncertain of a few items, right? Just to kind of get some consistency within your department. Or you know what? Give somebody a call, right? We got a lot of different associations all over the state of Ohio and even at local levels. Give us a call. We'll help you out, right? That's what it's all about. And we keep the projects moving. You ever put your foot in your mouth before? Huh? You say something, or maybe you send an email and you say, oh man, oh, I shouldn't have done that. And you finally realize and you say, oops, I messed up, right? Well, you know what? We got to be humble. Send something back, say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that, blah, blah, blah. Be humble. Come on now, right? Most inspectors get it right, right? Most plans examiners get it right. Most building officials get it right. But sometimes we unintentionally create barriers. Maybe we say something, I don't know, out of tune, or I don't know, something wrong. Or maybe it's how we said it. Maybe we're having a bad day. I don't know. Maybe one of your family members ended up in a hospital or something. Think about that. And your mind's been on that all day long. And all of a sudden, you just had enough and you just fly off the handle, maybe at a customer at the permit counter, or maybe a contentious contractor came in and started belittling you, and you just kind of went off. In other words, you got to kind of get it together, walk away, have somebody else deal with the customer, right? Get your act together, right? Sometimes we got to apologize. Hey, man, I'm really sorry. I'm going through some personal stuff. Sorry about that. Let me have Jim handle your complaint. Okay? You follow it? We need to look at our actions, not only at the job site, but in our office. Okay? Now, let me show you some things here. Here's where we kind of have some fun. When this book was written, we had some people that were contributors to this book, and they called me up before they published this book, and they says, hey Jerry, can you provide us with some information, some real life issues? And I says, absolutely. So we actually provided the ICC with some of these things. Take a look. Here's what we call counterproductive rules without reason. You see this? It says rules. Remember, if you read a code book or a standard, normally this is like in the standards, like NFPA standards, you shall do this, you will do this, you must do this. It's a very kind of a demanding way to get the point across, right? So here's some remarks to avoid. These are real life things that have happened all over the United States, right? People will say, maybe in a communication, I don't write the code, I just enforce it. I've heard this. I've heard this before in building departments. On the phone, I don't write the code, I just enforce it. Maybe they're getting all ticked off because somebody's giving them a hard time. Don't do it. That is the wrong approach. That is a remark to avoid. What's the negative message sent here? What is it? I'm not very interested in learning the reasons for the code requirements. I'm just here to make a paycheck, right? I'm just here for 8 hours and then I'm out of here. I don't care. I don't care. Get out of that attitude. That is not professional by no means. That is not us. That is not us here in the state of Ohio, right? The correct action, maybe in a case like this, would be to support the code, which you should always do because that's your basis, your benchmark, and give reasons for the rules. Emphasize the minimum requirements. It goes back to how well do you know your code based on your discipline. The longer you're into this, you're going to get into a whole bunch of other disciplines. You'll never stop reading. You'll never stop researching. An old guy taught me that one time many, many years ago. And you know what? He was right. I keep learning every day. I love to learn. You should too, because it enhances and fortifies not only your professionalism, but your ability to communicate with a whole bunch of different types of people from all walks of life, both technical and non-technical people. All right. We call this counterproductive, rules without reasons. How about this? If I look at it this way, correction without cause. How about this one? You ever hear this? Remarks to avoid. That's the way we like to see it done in our jurisdiction because we know better than the code. How about that? How do you like me now? That's pretty arrogant, isn't it? That's the way we like to see it done in our jurisdiction. What's the negative message sent? We make up our own rules based on our personal preferences because we think it's better that way. People, if you start to do this, the complaints will come in and you may get a visit from somebody or a phone call from somebody that you don't want to get a call from. And I'll leave it at that. So we provide the rules, right? We administer the rules as they are adopted lawfully. Okay. That's how we do it, right? And it's easy. Just convey the information. Correct action is the following. Require only what the code requires. Avoid the perception of enforcing rules based on your personal preferences. Maybe you learn best practices in the trades, right? In the plumbing trade, mechanical, electrical, building trades, right? Now you're going to try to bring that into your administration and enforcement capabilities in a building department. Don't do it. But if it's part of the code, maybe you can. Right? But don't ask for more than what the code requires. All right, I want you to look at this. I just want you to take a look at the picture here. You have two gentlemen here, and it looks like it's a pretty contentious communication. What do you think? Is that a contentious kind of a verbal communication? Do you see that? I kind of see that, right? I see maybe, I don't even know who the building official is. Maybe one of them is the owner of a building. The other one's a building official. I don't know, but can you pick out who the building official is? I can't right away, but here's the remarks that you need to avoid, right? You never, ever indicate, hey, there's a new sheriff in town. It's my way or the highway. Or you're not going to do this in my town because I'm in total control here and you will do as I state. That's pretty arrogant, isn't it? Avoid that. It's incorrect. You have to work with people. Remember? Consensus. Not only consensus within your department, but consensus outside relative to the public that we represent. Here's the negative message sent, right? I'm in charge. I decide what codes that we're going to enforce and the way we're going to enforce them, and just do what I say. Don't cross me or there'll be some consequences. That's pretty harsh. I'd say that's pretty arrogant, right? That's going to get you in trouble. The corrective action is the following. You have to encourage a collaborative working relationship. Now, sometimes we can't avoid I or me, but a lot of times you want to avoid this in a general conversation. Just say, I don't know, according to Section 703 of the Ohio Building Code, there are certain methods that you can provide for fire resistant rated construction. Let me share that with you, right? Things of that nature. Try to avoid I, me, or my, and always be respectful, right? In your communications, kind of little tips and tricks along the way. Is anybody in the room here a fortune teller? Is anybody in the room here a fortune teller? Because I got some good ones here for you, right? Let me put it to you this way. No matter how many times you've heard things, you've seen things, and you think you're going to see it over and over and over again, don't go down this path. Don't be a fortune teller. Here's what I'm talking about. Here's a remark to avoid, okay? The code allows it, and you can try it that way, but I'm telling you now that it will fail inspection. If somebody told me that, I would say, well, can you qualify that? What the heck are you talking about? That doesn't sound right. That sounds pretty demanding here. Like, something that I'm going to do before it's done and you're going to fail it? That's not right, right? What's the negative message sent? In other words, if I'm the homeowner and you're talking to me like this, I may not have the experience like you do, but you're telling me that I'm not skilled enough to pull this off, like build my own deck or maybe put in my own pool, right? And you're telling me that I'm going to fail the inspection, then you'll have to do it. Then I'll have to do it your way. I don't know. I don't think too kindly to that. I want some good information, some good communication, some nice communication. If I've got questions, maybe you can help me answer some questions as a homeowner. Correct the action. Remain objective, right? You're the professional. Stick to the facts, what the code says. Maybe give some examples, or maybe you have some handouts at the front counter or on the website that you can share with the people that you're talking with, right? Give instructions in a positive way and be helpful. Be helpful. Let me show you some pitfalls here, okay? I'm going to show you some key areas here to avoid, all right? Here is a list of some pitfalls, not only for inspectors, but building officials, permit techs, fire inspectors, plans examiners. It's for everybody. I'm not leaving anybody out here, okay? That damage working relationships and undermine the goals of the building department, right? I mean, an office environment, it's got to work like a finely tuned machine, but where does that start from? It starts from the top and it kind of trickles down. If you've got good policies and procedures and communicate really good, that's fine. But it also starts from the bottom up as well, right? It could start from the cleaning person coming into the office, Hey, say hello to the cleaning person, how was your weekend? Oh, good, fantastic, right? All good stuff, right? We all get along, right? Inspectors, permit techs, plans examiners, chatting or spreading rumors rather than doing your job is not good, because now all of a sudden things could kind of get contentious and weird and dramatic, right? I call it static. Avoid that stuff, right? Be professional. A drive-by inspection. How about that one? There's really no such thing as called a drive-by inspection, especially these days. You never know who's looking. Everybody's got a camera and stuff like that. If you're an inspector and you're going out maybe on a final grade inspection, you say, I'm just going to kind of drive by and take a look at it that way. No, do your job. Get out of the car, go up, check around the whole building as it is indicated on the approved construction documents, and look at that accordingly, right? Be professional, do your job. Tracking mud into a building, you go on a final inspection, right? Be courteous, right? Take your shoes off or put those little booties on or something like that. Don't track mud into the building. I got to tell you, I have to confess, I've done that a couple of times, not really or knowing that I've done it. I never forgot this. It was a new house several years ago, and it was a bad day out. It was all nasty and cold and mucky out there. So I thought I had my work boots all cleaned off because I wiped them off on the grass real good. And then I kind of put these little booties on, these little blue cover ups, but the mud actually soaked through the work boots, through that little booty thing. And I found out that they had it was like a white shag carpeting. I found like 2 footprints in there. So I turned around and I hurried up and I scurried back. 2 footprints were on this white shag looking carpeting. And the builder comes in right after me and he says, Jerry, don't worry about it. We got the carpet cleaner coming in later today. I says, oh, good. Thank you. I'm sorry, stuff like that. You got to be humble. Don't be persistent until you find one violation and then stop inspecting. Don't do it. Do a good, thorough inspection. If you're there for a structure, electrical, mechanical, plumbing, whatever, document items that are not in compliance. Follow the board rules in accordance with Chapter 1, right? Your supervisor should show you the process. You should understand the process. Read the books. Go to the Code Academy. Listen to the Board of Building Standards. We understand the process, but don't do this. Don't damage property, such as stapling notices to a door or siding. Don't take spray paint out on a rough inspection and start spray painting all the structure that's not compliant. You're destroying materials. Don't do it. Okay. Moving on. Communication. Communication. What about communication? There's a whole different realm of communication that we utilize today in the modern world. We use face-to-face. We use electronic like email, social media, things of that nature. But for communication, this is definitely the keystone of not only the inspector, but the plans examiner, the building official, the permit techs. Effective interaction with the public. It has to be, right? For the inspector, it's primarily face-to-face in the field while you're doing the inspections, right? Maybe for the permit techs, it's at the counter, right? Maybe the building official comes up once in a while. Plans examiners, maybe they're stuck in a back room or something like that, reviewing plans. They may get phone calls, emails, things of that nature. But the inspector needs to develop good telephone, writing, and email presentation and communication skills, right? Written, verbal, and nonverbal. And you have to understand how to deliver bad news. Now, did you know that wireless technology has been around longer than you think? Did you know that? I'm going to show you an example of wireless technology at its finest. Let's say that Jerry is talking to you right now. Take a look at that. Maybe we're looking at each other face to face. Well, look at it this way. I'm going to give you what's called an electronic wireless model. Okay. Everybody that's listening to me is a sender and a receiver of information. And so am I. I'm actually sending information as I'm talking to you, but I'm listening as well. So I'm going to send out information to you and I'm going to wait for a response. You're going to send something back to me, right? Send, receive, send, receive. We're all senders of information and we're all receivers of information. If I send you information, do you think you all receive it the same way? Well, I would say maybe, but maybe not, right? How do I gauge that? Try to understand who you're speaking to, who you're talking to, right? So here, if I send something out like, good morning, everybody, how are you today? I'm going to send that out, boom. And then I'm going to wait. I sent that message out, then I'm going to wait for some kind of a audible visual feedback. You follow what I'm saying? Okay, because you're going to send something back to me. And if you're going to send a response like this, I don't know, maybe I really don't like him that much, or I don't like her that much, but I got to send something back really nice and cordial, but this is how I really feel, That's kind of a funny thing, isn't it? Right? In other words, communication. We all want to be courteous. We all want to be nice, things like that. So basically, whatever message that you send it in a friendly manner, right? Send it in a friendly tone. This not only goes for face to face, but how about writing an email? Do emails have tones? Do letters have tones? They sure do. Keep it professional and keep it on point. In other words, choose the right channel, right? The sensitivity and the emotional content of the subject is key. Understand what you're about to say, what you're about to write, and understand how easy is it to communicate detail. You may not understand the person that you or the group that you may be communicating to, but when you start this communication, you'll maybe see the preferences that the receiver may best respond to by having a communication. We'll talk about time constraints and maybe the need to ask or answer questions. In other words, understand your objective, understand your audience, plan what you want to say. All right, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give you an example here. I'm going to give you like a little bit of technical training and technical communication training. So, for all the people out here, here's the question, and you don't have to know this because I'm just going to use it as an example. Don't worry about it if you don't know the answer to this question. I'll give you the answer. Technical thing on communication. I'm going to give you a technical application right here. It's called a firewall. In general, what is a firewall, you may ask? Well, a firewall is actually a wall that separates buildings. So in other words, I could build buildings adjacent to one another and have all of the height and area constraints within each building separately by separating them by this substantial thing that we call a firewall. So what is a firewall, right? Basically, a firewall is something that is built for the structure on each side of the wall that separates buildings. Well, what's so substantial about a firewall? Well, it has to extend in general, without exception, not less than 30 inches above the roof. That's number one, right? It must have structural stability to allow collapse of the building on either side during a fire condition. And that wall has to have a fire resistance rating. So that's a pretty substantial wall, and it's called a firewall. Why did I tell you this? Because I gave you a little bit of technical information so you can maybe work with me through this particular communication example. Are you ready? All right, I'm going to lay it on you now. You know what a firewall is, and let's say that you're the inspector. It's Friday, and it is Friday here. And let's say it's your last inspection of the day and it's about 3:00 p.m. Well, you go out on the job site, you find the approved construction documents, and the only one on the job site is the owner of the building. The owner of the building happens to be, I don't know, maybe an attorney or an accountant. They have no technical expertise of what's going on because general contractor took off early. So the owner's there to kind of greet you and show you the way. So let me show you what I'm going to show you now. Here it is. Here's the planning of your communication. So here it is. You look at the approved construction documents and you see a section view like this here, and it shows this masonry wall that we call a firewall that's indicated on the approved drawings. Look at this. It's block. I stacked block up and it's reinforced here. And look at this. This is that parapet that extends above the roof surface. I want you to look at this, okay? Now, the approved drawings that you see on the job site call out for a 12-inch thick masonry firewall. How do I know that? Well, I come over here and I say, here it is, 12 inches concrete masonry units. That's these right here. You with me so far? And the owner's standing there with you. And you're saying, well, that's what they show on the drawings. Let's go and take a look at the location of where this firewall is. So you walk with the owner and you approach the firewall, and look what you come up with here. You look at the firewall and you actually take an actual dimension of what's been built on the job site. And you realize after you take out your tape measure and measured the thickness of that masonry unit, it's only 8 inches thick. That firewall was built using 8-inch thick masonry instead of 12-inch thick masonry. And you look to the owner and say, well, I see some inconsistencies that are not in compliance with the approved construction documents. The documents that we approved at the building department show a 12-inch thick masonry wall. Lo and behold, you only have an 8-inch thick masonry wall. The question is, how do you communicate with the building owner that is the only one present on the site? What would you communicate? Tear it down, have a nice day, Tom. I don't know if we want to do that, right? Yeah. It is Friday, isn't it? Right? Yeah. Tear it down, have a nice weekend. I love it, right? It doesn't match the plans. But hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. Let's kind of stick with this here. Although we point that out, can we maybe state something here? What I would do is I'd say, well, it's not in compliance with the plans and I have to document that. But what you should do is get a hold of the design professional, and just maybe you can consult with the design professional. They may have a design for a thinner masonry wall that would suffice for the structural stability, the fire resistance rating of this firewall. But you need to consult with them and submit revised construction documents for review and approval of what's been built on the job site. Yeah, Marty, exactly right. Right? Absolutely. So, I mean, you can recommend things. Always look at the process as well. Okay, so I just kind of throw that stuff out there. Creating a clear message. That's what we always want to do. Understand what you need and want to say, right? Anticipate the other person's reaction. How do you do that? Maybe soften up the blow, have some empathy if you're going to deliver some bad news, right? Choose words that allow the other person to really hear what you're saying, I'm going to go through a couple more slides, Meg, and then we're going to wrap it up here. Let me kind of bring up a few last slides here. I'm going to close my PowerPoint and bring it back on. Just give me 1 second here. I want to go over one last piece here with everybody on in-person, face-to-face communication. Let me bring this up, okay? I want us to understand that maybe body language, we can maybe sense what the person is going through, and maybe we really can't sense what the person is going through. Take a look. If we meet with people face to face, right? Can we kind of tell by their body language or their expressions of maybe how they're feeling or how they're reacting? Maybe, maybe not. Interaction with people involves both verbal and nonverbal communication. How you say it is just as important as what you say. Take a look at some of these people. Look at their expressions and their body language, totally different, right? The goal is to project an image of the inspector as willing to help, right? Willing to help, open to questions, courteous and respectful of others. We've been talking like that while working on the job site or even in the office. Inspectors should greet customers in a friendly manner. So should plans examiners, permit techs, things of that nature, and introduce yourself accordingly. How many times have you called the building department and on the other end of the line, the permit tech picks up the phone and says, building department? And I say to myself, well, they didn't acknowledge who they were and they didn't say good morning. I'd say, good morning, this is Jerry. Can I speak with the building official, please? Not in right now. And they leave you hanging. That's pretty gruff, don't you think? Building officials, managers, you need to kind of have a talk, maybe bring in some friendly attitudes, phone etiquette, things of that nature. Maybe the proper approach is, good morning, building department, may I help you? Good morning, this is Jerry at the local building department. How can I help you? Things of that nature. Look at the person. If we're looking face to face, not on a phone call, look at the person. Pay attention to the body language, nod and smile. That way you're acknowledging your conversation. Allow the person to speak. Don't interrupt too much, right? If you know the question that's going to come out, let them speak. Remember, be a better listener. Don't interrupt. Okay? Reasons for not listening. Maybe they've already made up their mind. They only hear what they want to hear. They'll jump to conclusions because they're coming off of a, I don't know, maybe an inadequate set of construction documents, or they're just lack of interest on what you have to say, or maybe they're angry or upset. I want to show you some different formal feedback, and then we're going to close it out here. Give me about another, I don't know, maybe about 6 slides, and we're going to be done with this. So body language, informal feedback. Take a look at this here. Look at this person. The hands are on the hips. Look at the eyes just glaring at you. What does this represent to you? What do you think her emotions and her body language and her facial expressions are telling you? What do you think? Type it in the chat. Run. Yeah, run, get out of here. Yeah, I would say kind of like annoyed or irritated. Yeah, maybe, you know what? You turned down my set of electrical drawings for the pool that I wanted to install for my kids, and now you're going to hold me up for another 2 weeks, right? It's basically aggression or readiness. How about this one? Touching, maybe rubbing the nose, looking away from you. What do you think this is? Type it in the chat. Tired, annoyed, yeah, something like that. Maybe disgusted. Yeah, it could be. Yeah, it could be a few of those things. Maybe even rejection, maybe doubt, maybe lying. I'm lying to you, so I'm going to look away from you. I'm not going to look you square in the eye, right? You could tell a lot about people sometimes, but sometimes not. How about this one? Rubbing with eyes closed. Rubbing with eyes closed. You went out on the foundation inspection and you found that they didn't dig down to the frost depth. And now this contractor is looking at you and then looking down and rubbing his eyes. He had another foot to go. You know what he's thinking? Think about it. It's negative, isn't it? It's frustrated. Why didn't I do that? Why didn't my excavator dig down to frost like we told him to on the approved set of construction documents, right? That's what it is. Yeah, disbelief. I'm stressed. I got to stay here. How about this one? This guy turned around while you were talking to him, clasped his hands behind his back, and just turned away from you as you were trying to explain to him the code violation on the sprinkler system, that the sprinkler head was too close to the wall. The ceiling sprinkler head was too close to the wall. About to lose it. Yeah, anger. Yeah, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it anymore, right? Yeah, you got it. See, so you understand it. You got it, right? Anger, frustration. How about this one? Head resting on hand. She looks not to be excited about, an explanation of an electrical or mechanical code requirement. What do you think? I don't know. Yeah, yeah, I'm smarter than you, right? Yeah, that's funny. I'm bored. Yeah, I'm bored. Bored. How about this right here? Arms crossed on chest. Now, I don't know if you know me, Jerry Flanik. Sometimes when I get up in front of a crowd, I have to hold my arms like this because my arms are all messed up, but it rests my arms. But sometimes people cross their arms for what? Yeah, I won. Yeah, right. That's funny. Not listening. Really? Kind of a defensive posture, right? Kind of a defensive posture. It could be. How about this person right here? We all know these people. You're biting your nails, chomping on your nails, right? Nervous. You got it, Glenn. Dave, Michael, Tommy, excellent, right? I'm nervous. Insecurity. How about this? Oh, I'm so excited. Yeah, I'm so excited. I finally got through to that general contractor and he understands the code section like I do. Hallelujah, way. Right? Finally, yes, absolutely. All that stuff, right? Excited. And with that note, that ends our presentation for the day. I hope you learned a lot today about inspector skills and implement that accordingly. Meg, I think that's it, and that's all I've got. Thank you very
Jared,
much. Have a good
thank you
weekend.
so much for an excellent presentation. We are going to be starting our Code Academy wrap up in just a few minutes, and I'll put that into the chat for you all so that you can